Friends, now let me try to analyze the facts leading to the Israel war and its current status. It's not a sudden event, it has a long history, and it is US and Israel versus Iran. On 28th February 2026, Israel, in the name of Operation Roaring Lion, and the United States in the name of Operation Epic Fury, they started their coordinated joint attacks, joint strikes on various sites and cities like Tehran in Iran. And in response to this, Iran also has reiterated in a larger scale in the name of Operation True Promise. Now let us see the background of this 2026 Iran war and then the current status. See, the United States and the United Kingdom, they supported a coup defeat in 1953 in Iran, overthrowing the then Prime Minister Mohammad Mossadegh, and they strengthened the rule of Mohammad Reza. Again, in the course of time, the supreme monarch of Iran, Shah, his highly religious approach, complete negative attitude towards the Western interests, the progressive thoughts, what we call, and his autocratic monarchical rule, it resulted in a resentment in the Iranian people, and that led to the 1979 revolution in which Shah was overthrown. And after this, Iran again became an Islamic republic and adopted a hostile approach, that is the enemy approach towards the United States and Israel. And during the Iran-Iraq war in 1980s, the US provided economic support, intelligence support, and indirect military support to Iraq. Iran resisted this. Iran resisted to US and Israeli interests in the Middle East and resisted engaging in proxy conflicts in this region by the US and Israel. So these ongoing tensions escalated to a greater heights, escalated to the direct conflict between the US and Iran, especially in January 2020, when Donald Trump, he ordered the assassination of Qasem Soleimani. So tensions between Iran and the US and Israel further escalated following the start of the Gaza war, during which Israel weakened the Iranian backed militants across the Middle East, including the Hamas in Gaza and the Hezbollah in Lebanon and others. So Israel and Iran, they exchanged strikes in April and October 2024. So it was a mini war, and they were engaged in a brief war in 2025, which included an American airstrike aimed at destroying Iran's nuclear facilities. Iran's development of nuclear enrichment capabilities has been an international controversy for decades. The US and its allies, they are insisting Iran to prevent the nuclear weapons development. Iran has been telling that it is not seeking nuclear weapons and that its enrichment efforts are only to generate the nuclear power for civilian use. So this is what Iran has been telling. And the first regime of Trump's administration adopted a maximum pressure strategy by imposing economic sanctions against Iran. And next, the Biden administration also continued with the economic sanctions against Iran, and on the other hand, he also implemented more measures. The second Trump administration in US reimposed the maximum pressure approach on Iran with more seriousness. So this resulted in the economic crisis in Iran. Iran's GDP per capita, it fell from more than dollars, $8,000 in 2012 to about $5,000 in 2024. And the sharp declines started from 2018 onwards. Sanctions drove millions of Iranians into poverty, and it reduced their purchasing power in relation to the import of essential commodities such as food and medicine, resulting in inflation, unemployment and infrastructure deterioration. So several other factors such as long-term domestic corruption, the economic mismanagement, water scarcity, power problems, etc., led Iran towards poverty. So by December 25, the value of the Iranian currency, the rial, it reached a record low value. Inflation rate went up by 42%. Unrest among people of Iran became larger and more frequent due to the economic crisis. And on 27th February 2026, the International Atomic Energy Agency, IAEA, they discovered that Iran had hidden highly enriched uranium in an underground facility that was undamaged in the previous round of fighting. And IAEA said that Iran's nuclear program may not be exclusively for peaceful purposes as they project, because the agency was denied, IAEA was denied an access at the time of reportage. So in 2024, in a statement, the Iranian government official, I think one by name Kamal Karazi, he quoted that Iran was it was prepared to change its atomic policy on nuclear armament, but the Khomeini's fatwa, it was stopping them from doing so. So beginning from late December 2025, massive nationwide anti-government protests erupted in Iran, driven largely by the economic crisis, the collapse of the rial, that is their currency, and rising prices. The demand of protesters included calls for the regime change. Protests became the largest in scale since 1979 revolution, spreading to more than 100 cities across the country. So on 2nd January 2026, US President Donald Trump, he encouraged the anti-government protests in Iran, and he threatened the immediate military intervention if Iran killed peaceful protesters. But the Iranian government responded with violent repression, including the massacres of the protesters, with the deadliest incidents occurring on 8th and 10th January 2026. On 13th January, Trump expressed their support for the Iranian anti-government protesters and said that help is on the way for them. And later on 23rd January, Trump announced that the aircraft carrier USS Abraham Lincoln and several guided missile destroyers are on the way. So the Trump administration, based on their intelligence report, stated in February 2026 that Iran had restarted its nuclear program and was developing the missiles with enough range for an attack on the US, and that Iran was planning to preemptively launch the missiles. So on 13th February, Trump ordered the aircraft carrier USS Gerald R. Ford and its supporting warships to sail to the Middle East. So United States demanded three things from Iran. One, a permanent end to all uranium enrichment. So strict limits on the Iran's ballistic missile program, and to completely stop regional proxy groups such as Hamas, Hezbollah and the Houthis. So 2026 nuclear negotiations They were held on 6th February 2026. Iran and the US held indirect nuclear negotiations in the woman's capital, Muscat. A second round of nuclear talks was scheduled in Geneva. Between 15th and 20th February, Iran increased its oil exports to 3 times the normal rate and reduced the oil storage. So in the discussions, US wanted Iran not to stockpile the enriched uranium, allow access to the International Atomic Energy Agency for full verification, to irreversibly downgrade its current enriched uranium to the lowest level possible. All these talks failed. Iran insisted on its legal right to enrich uranium as a sovereign country, rejecting a US proposal for zero enrichment. And they also they boasted that its current stock of 460 kilograms of 60% enriched uranium itself could produce 11 nuclear bombs. So on 27th February at 3:30 p.m. EST, 11:08 p.m. IRST, Donald Trump, traveling on Air Force One to Texas, he gave the order to proceed with Operation Epic Fury. Airstrikes on Iran, it began on 28th February, Saturday at around 9:45 a.m. IRST, 1:15 a.m. EST. And Saturday is the first day of the week in Iran and a regular working day. So the planning for a proposed series of attacks also started in coordination with Israeli intelligence agencies. United States missiles, drones and the Israeli fighter jets, they were used in these strikes. Israel helped the United States to lead the war. Tehran, where the Iranian Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khomeini normally resided, and also the home to the Presidential Palace and the National Security Council. It was their prime target, US and Israel's prime target. And reports said that at least 7 missiles had struck this area. The attacks included the killing of the Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khomeini and several other senior Iranian military officials. So long planning of the Israeli military seems to have helped their strikes, allowing them to very precisely pinpoint their targets. The Israeli Air Force, their IAF, said that it had struck 500 military targets in western and central Iran, including the air defenses and the missile launchers, using approximately 200 fighter jets in the largest combat sortie in its history. Israeli weapons included the newly developed Black Sparrow air-launched ballistic missiles. Fired from F-15s, Israel has said its initial strikes used over 1,200 bombs in 24 hours. Iranian naval vessels were also targeted. Together with the physical airstrikes, Israel also conducted coordinated cyber attacks on the Iranian infrastructure, media and phone applications, with messages calling on the Iranians to rise up against the government. These cyber attacks resulted in a near total internet blackout in Iran, lasting over 60 hours, with the connectivity dropping to as low as 1 to 4% of the normal levels, disrupting the government communications, state media and public services. Israel subsequently declared a state of emergency in view of the expected Iranian attack. Israel government warned its citizens to remain in protected areas when they give the signals. See, US carried out a number of strikes by planes based around the Middle East and from one or more aircraft carriers. And in retaliation, Iran launched dozens of its drones and ballistic missiles throughout the Persian Gulf on Israel and the US military bases in Jordan, Kuwait, Bahrain, Qatar, Iraq, Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates. Iran launched the strikes on civilian airports and shipping ports in Kuwait, the UAE and Oman. Britain's military base in Cyprus was struck. Iran closed the Strait of Hormuz, disrupting the global oil and gas shipments. And Hezbollah in Lebanon joined the war after the killing of the Khomeini. Few days ago, Iran's warship Iris Dena, returning from international fleet review in Vizag, it was attacked by a US submarine beyond, that is, off Sri Lanka's coast, killing 83 people. US has intensified its campaign targeting the Iran's fleet of warships. And Iran also continues its attacks against the neighboring countries that host US forces. And according to the reliable sources, United States is getting ready for a major attack using B-1, B-2, B-52 stealth bombers from US military bases in Britain. The war is widening its ambit day by day, and as the war is widening its base, we have understood what is the current position of war, and we also don't know anytime the US may strike their targets in Iran with the most powerful B-1, B-2, B-52 stealth bombers. And friends, on 1st March, Trump stated that the operation would take 1 month or less for his objectives to be completed. And he has given a clue about the possibility of using the ground forces also. Several countries have condemned the initial strikes for undermining the stability of the Middle East. Some other countries have condemned the Iran's retaliatory strikes on US allies in the region. Celebrations and protests, they are going on worldwide. On account of this, the violence and shootings occurred in other regions also. So in simple words, there is the story of Iran-Israel, Iran-US war. And the Indian government has taken a neutral stand. We strongly believe that war is not a solution for any dispute as such. We believe that things ought to be sorted out through effective negotiations, sitting in an unbiased environment, taking everybody's interests into account. Human life on this earth is temporary and uncertain. We should all therefore strongly believe in the human values and the principles of peaceful coexistence. Nature and the human lives, they are the God's gift. Innocent people should not be subject to any suffering at all. The lives of the innocent should not be ruined. The nature should not be raped. Not one party, but both the parties, all the parties should keep these ideals in view before taking any major action. So we wish the entire humanity on the earth a good mind, a good heart, good luck, good time, peace and happiness. Thank you, friends.